All right, good morning, everybody. We'll get started with opening up a prayer. Mayor Austin, please open us up with a prayer.
May we pray? Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day, and thank you for the many blessings that you bestowed upon us. Dear Father, thank you for the health and safety you granted to those in the most recent storms. Dear Father, help us to understand that you are our Creator and that you are ultimately in control of all that happens around us. Dear Father, today we ask for your wisdom as we conduct the business of these authorities. We ask that you would be with us, that you would grant us peace, and that you would be honored in all the things that we do. In your name, in the name of Christ, I pray.
Amen. Thank you, buddy. All right, I want to welcome everybody. We got any elected officials out here this morning? I don't see anybody. Okay, but thank y'all for coming. Anybody want to hear the minutes from the 15th meeting? January 15th.
Second.
All in favor? All righty. How about the February 14th meeting? Anybody want to hear the minutes for that?
Make a motion, we accept. Second.
All in favor?
I will abstain. I was unable to attend.
I was too.
Okay. All righty. We're going to have a financial report this morning. We're just going to move right past that.
You've got your financial documents in your backup. Got balance sheet as well as profit and loss for budget versus annual. Everybody's got any questions on them? We're not going to go through them in detail this morning, but if anybody has a question on them, we'll address it.
Make a motion, we accept.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Jacob.
Jacob couldn't make it, so I'm going to speak on his behalf. Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Morning.
I'll start with the overrun project. Our construction's complete. We're just going through some final punch list items. On that project, so we're just working with the contractor to make sure also that sediment control is maintained and all of our measures are, doing their job. So that's where we are on that. Taxway widening project, we've got some good weather, thankfully. So we started paving on this end Monday, and they have successfully placed concrete all the way down to the taxway E object-free area. And you'll see probably today they're going to be moving across E over to this side and start widening along this northern side of Alpha in the next few days. They're scheduled to place about 800 yards a day, and that should get us through concrete placement to the end of late next week, maybe Saturday or Sunday. We're going to have to close Taxway E on Monday to do work inside of that object-free and safety area, so you can expect a closure at that point. Other than that, the project's moving pretty smoothly. We had a couple issues at the concrete plant on yesterday, but they've gotten that taken care of, so we're back on track. And I think that's all for the widening project. The ARF station construction is currently on hold, and I don't have any further details on that project. So if you guys have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
How long will it be closed?
E will be closed for approximately 6 days, hopefully sooner if we, depending on weather and how fast we can get the concrete down and do all the work.
This might be a question for Blake here, but the safety issue is what concerns me about the taxway. When are we going to reopen it?
Are you talking about Alpha?
Uh-huh.
Well, Alpha on this side could be reopened once they get the grading done along the edge, and I can check with the contractor today to see when that will take place, when that's on their schedule. Actually get the backfill done. You can't have a drop off at the edge of the concrete, obviously, before you can open it, so it's just a matter of getting the grading done and they can open that back up.
Does that concrete have to cure a certain amount of days before that backfilling can be done?
Yes, it does. It should only be a couple of days in order to get it cured enough to actually do the backfilling. You you can't get, you know, obviously you can't get airplanes on it for longer than that, but you could work up to it.
Blake, how long you foresee this thing being shut down, the taxiway?
Well, and they just started paving on Monday, so, they think they'll finish up paving, within the next 2 weeks. So, the backfilling is really a very simple operation. There's not a whole lot to the backfilling, just grading that shoulder out. So, I don't have the specific schedule in front of me, but I would hope within 30 days, we'll be able to get most of our parallel back open.
Are they gonna be able to open the runway, I mean, the taxiway without the lights, or can we open it without the lights?
They can open it without the lights, yes, and we have to note them, the lights as being out, but yes, they can open it without the lights.
Okay. Just a-
Blake, we have plans to do a really good inspection before we open any portion of that taxiway.
Yeah, FOD is gonna be a big undertaking for this. I mean, anytime you do construction of this magnitude, FOD is a big deal. So, of course, the contractor has the responsibility for the FOD in that area. That's not our FOD to deal with, that's the contractor's FOD to deal with. But we will have several level of inspections that will take place before we open it back up. The contractor will do his own inspection. Our representatives, LPA, will do their inspection, and then we internally will do our own inspection. So you can expect that each piece of concrete will be inspected a minimum of 3 times before it's opened back up.
Thank you very much. Anybody got any questions for you? Okay, let's move on. All right, RT committee, Jason.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Morning, Jason.
Wanted to bring you guys up to speed on the latest updates I've added to the website. Back in September, October, Blake and Carrie, myself, and Mr. Underwood kind of discussed where we wanted to take the website, which included training, the ability for airport personnel to log in, track training, be able to easily publish new documents like news articles, videos, etc. So I'm happy to say over the last couple of weeks, I've pretty much got the website to that state. Airport personnel can go in, log in into the portal. You'll actually see a list based on privileges. I've got different roles defined. But based on those roles, you'll see different options in the portal. For instance, if Junie wants to be a publisher of news articles, meeting minutes, etc., like that, when she logs in, she'll actually see the options to be able to publish that. Whereas someone who logs in to take training, who may be working on the airport runway, etc., won't see those abilities. So it's very easy, very straightforward. So pretty much as of today, or this week, whenever I have time to spend with Blake and Junie or whoever's going to be doing the publishing, they can take that over. Literally, the publisher can publish new articles, minutes, etc., within about 30 seconds. So very easy and very fast. The other thing I did is I went through and reworked some of the HTML. So the website is, quote, responsive, and what that means is that you can view the website on any kind of phone, tablet, computer, etc., in different orientations, and it'll automatically scale appropriately so the website looks good. So I did some background cleanup and upgraded to the latest website framework. I'd hope to have the operations manuals done today. I still have a couple hours left on them. As I've reported in the past, the operations manuals will be for the staff to know how to use the website. I mean, it's how to use it, so you don't have to involve me. So basically at this point, a lot of this stuff can be handed off to airport personnel, and it'll free my time up to add new features. I know one of the things that we've talked about adding is information with a new 911 center and fire station. We need to add new pages. Any new features like that is kind of where I see my role, but just the day-to-day running and publishing stuff, tracking training, etc., can all be done by anyone on the airport personnel. So I think we're almost there as far as what we discussed where we wanted to be back in September, October. Now we can kind of set our sights forward for kind of the next phase of what we want to do with the website. So, the training is there. As people take training, it automatically tracks them. Again, you can log in and see exactly who took the training, when they took it, whether it was completed. The only thing I have left to do with the training is I need to add a few instructions, and I want to add a training certificate, which is just a PDF saying that so-and-so took this training on this date, just so they can print it out if they want. But, pretty much it. Yes.
Will you also have a column on there that will say when their recertification date is?
I will. I have not added that yet, but that is one of the things, and I also need to add email notifications. So.
Judy, Jason published a document on February the 17th and sent it to you, a summary of all of the stuff that he's doing. Can you, the board did not get that. There was only a couple of people who saw that. So can you find that and send it out to all of the board members?
Okay, sure. You said it came out February 17th?
Yeah, I think that was Monday.
It's email here, right?
And that's a little summary, and it probably creates more questions than it does answers.
The email that Jim's referring to just has a synopsis of the updates that have been done in the last couple of months. And Jason is oversimplifying for you
Yes.
what he has done and the effort that's been put into the website. I'll say our website's by and far in the best shape it's ever been in. There's more information than we've ever had compared to other airport websites, which I look at on a regular basis. Ours is head and shoulders above, and the sophistication in it is pretty incredible, and the capabilities that it will have internally are staggering to me. He's done just a marvelous job.
I agree 100%. All right, Jason, appreciate you, buddy.
Nice job.
Okay. Approved document retention policy, timetable.
If you recall, last month you had an agenda item, very same thing for approved document retention policy, and I had not been able to get you a copy of the policy for you to look at. I sent that out to you earlier this week, along with a link that is about 150-some pages of policy material, so that's why it's hard to bring hard copies for everyone. But it is essentially the same policy. Well, it's not essentially, it is the exact same policy, record retention policy that the state has. It's also the same record retention policy that Paulding County has. So you would be adopting a record retention policy that requires you to do this authority to do the same thing that the state and the county does with their records. They can be stored. Mr. Austin asked a question about where they could be stored. They can be stored electronically, so space shouldn't be an issue. Blake and Judy are familiar with the county's policy as county employees, so it'll be the same. It'll be easier for them to abide by. So that's the policy that's proposed. Of course, you'll need a motion in a second and a vote to adopt the
I
policy.
move to adopt the policy.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
A little bit at the time. Okay, now, and this is one I know everybody's interested in, approved public participation policy of authority meetings. Tom?
I received for several months now, the authority's been talking about allowing citizens to speak at its meetings, and we've asked for some input from people, and I received quite a bit of input, either from people directly or through authority members where people had submitted requests to them. I tried to give you, there's first of all, there's a lot of different ways that you can do this. I mean, there's no magic way to allow people to speak at your meetings. I tried to give you a couple of examples of things just for you to be thinking about. One was a format where at the end of every meeting, you allotted some time for a limited number of people to speak. There would be restrictions, obviously, on the people that spoke. I mean, it would have to be about a particular topic. That topic would have to be, they would have to submit an application, something telling you what they were going to speak on, and they would have to obviously stick to that topic. The chairman would obviously be able to determine whether or not they were off topic and bring them back if they got off. But you would have to determine also how many people were allowed to speak at the meetings and how long you were allowed to speak, whether you were going to ask questions. All of those things were proposed in one format. The other format was more of a public hearing type format. It would be really an extra meeting of the authority. Instead of trying to add a couple of people at the end of every meeting, you would just have an extra meeting maybe once a quarter or so, which is a quarterly public hearing. That's one way to do it. Like I said, you can do it really any way you want. I do think that it's important, in both public hearing format that I proposed to you and both the allowance people to speak at the end of the meeting, it's important to me that the restrictions, that you do have certain rules and regulations governing decorum of both the speakers, the audience, the members of the audience, as well as members of the authority. So it's really up to you. It's up as far as discussion goes. You just need to discuss what policy you want to propose. I do want to say this: you have on the agenda this morning 3 citizens that have requested to speak prior to the adoption of the policy. This policy won't go into effect even if you vote on it today. It won't go into effect until your next meeting. But you do have on the agenda to allow 3 citizens to speak today. I would certainly ask that those 3 citizens that speak today abide by basically whatever rules that you would adopt here today. But it's really, Mr. Chairman, it's really up to you to just kind of open the floor up for discussion as to what procedure you want to use and what you want to follow.
Well, let me start by saying this, that I would prefer to keep it to about 3 people per meeting, 5 minutes per person. On the lines that what just Tom just said that, and that's my input in the thing. I don't have a problem with doing it every 3 months either, if we want to have because this wheel does move mighty slow out here right now, and there's not a lot going on. And I don't know if every month would be appropriate, maybe so. But I think we should allow 3 people to talk, give them 5 minutes per person. And that's my thoughts on it, so, and that's out there, so y'all tell me what you think.
I concur with that.
Yeah, I think that was a logical process.
I agree.
Matches what the planning commission does,
Does it?
pretty much. I don't know about the board of commissioners time length, but I think it's fair.
Okay, so Ellis, you're okay with it?
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Second.
Do we need to go into,
Who said
can I
that?
ask one more question? Do we need to go into any detail as to, the subject's got to be tied to the airport authority and not?
Yeah, that's contained in the proposal that I sent to you, that the topic has to be something that's relevant to business of the airport authority. So in other words, if a citizen wanted to speak about something related to an issue that had nothing to do with the airport authority, then the chairman, he would get all those applications in, and he would determine who the 3, if you decide 3, he would determine those 3. He's going to give preference to people in order of when they're submitted their request, so that's going to be the first thing he's going to look at, is the timeliness of when they came in. But of course, if the very first one is something that's not related to the airport authority, then he's going to skip right over that and go to number 2. Policy also, as it's proposed, does say, a couple people have asked me about this, that if they don't get reached, then all of those applications just sort of go out, and they're going to have to reapply again the next month. So it's each month you would have to apply. It's not like if you had 4 people request and they were all legitimate topics, and all of the first 3 were selected, that 4th person, it doesn't move to number 1 on the list for the next month. They're going to have to reapply. They're going to have to do another application again, simply because of the timeliness of it. It may not be something that's relevant a month later, so.
And that would provide for the agenda to be published, or the preliminary agenda published by 4, and that would be the deadline on Friday before.
That's right, it's
the
the
meeting,
Friday
so that
before
it's
the
all
meeting.
included.
Correct. They would have to get their application in the Friday before. They would need to list the topic that they're going to discuss. And the only other question that came up, I think Mayor Debbie raised this issue, and I think this is a good point. I've seen it done both ways, so you're going to have to just give me some direction when I'm drafting the policy. If a person is given 5 minutes to speak, sometimes the questions that come, if the authority were to ask questions, do you want that 5 minutes to count toward their question time and answer time to count toward that 5 minutes? Or do you want it to say, no, that does not count? I'll tell you from my standpoint, trying to keep time and determining when someone's asking a question and when someone's responding to a question versus making their presentation gets to be problematic. So if you don't want the 5 minutes of questions, of your questions to count toward their 5 minutes, what I would encourage you all to do is allow the person to speak for 5 uninterrupted minutes. And then, if you have questions, ask all of your questions at the end. That way they have their full 5 minutes, but you also have the ability to get questions, and it doesn't create a time.
And the authority also has the ability to extend that time if they so
And all the-
choose.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree with that, but Mr. Cable, the other question I had, when the chairman receives these applications to
Yes.
speak, if there are 10 applications
Yes,
and 3 of the people have the same type of topics.
yes. He can determine that they are repetitive.
Right, but could they just then designate one person to speak?
Yes.
On all,
And
for
that's
those
in,
3?
yes, and that's in the policy. What he would do then is he would hopefully communicate with, let's say you had 5 people request and 3 of them were the same topic. He might have Mr. Swafford contact those 3 people and say, 3 people have all given the exact same topic. Do you want to consider having a spokesperson for the 3 of you so that one person could speak?
Okay.
If there were other topics that needed to be addressed. Now, if there were only 3 that requested it and they were all on the same topic, then they could all 3 come in and speak on the same topic.
Tom, one other thing. If some of the questions that come to the board, we probably, as a board, need to get together and make a response. Would we do it? It needs to be made publicly, so would we do it at the next meeting?
Yeah, what I would suggest you do is, you can entertain questions from the public, but it's not a question and answer session. It isn't a dialogue. This is their opportunity to tell you things that they want you to consider. If you can answer it immediately, then I'm not telling you you can't, but my advice to you would be, just listen to everything that they have to say, and then either have your secretary, executive director get back to them with an answer, or at the next meeting if you want to get back to them with an answer, or if you wanted to email them an answer, however you want to do it. But and my suggestion would be, just let Mr. Swafford answer the questions for them.
And when he does, can you just include the whole board
And he-
in that email?
That's correct. He can copy you on if he had answers for them. Now, like I said, if it's something like, that's very simple to answer and it doesn't require any kind of really deliberation, you can just simply answer it right there on the spot. But the idea is not a question and answer. It's more for the public to give you input, not for you to be responsive back to them, at least not immediately.
And sometimes, and it's always good to say, as we previously did with the planning commission, that we will take your questions or comments in sum. They may be answered immediately by the chair following the expiration of your time, or they may be answered in another manner following that.
Correct.
Again, it does draw out the time and delay other meetings.
Correct.
Yeah, and that's what everybody needs to remember up here too. We're all volunteers, we're all business people, and we don't have a lot of time. And let me go on to say this too, that we're not gonna allow any cheering, no clapping, none of that stuff. It's not gonna be any applauding, it's just gonna be strictly business. We're gonna keep this thing business, and this is what's gonna make it work for us and for y'all, to where everybody gets to be heard, and we don't step on any toes here. But I'm not gonna allow any cheering in this thing. No hand clapping, no nothing. And so, y'all remember that, and I'll warn you one time, and after that, then we'll take procedure against it. So, anyway, I guess we need a vote.
You need a motion and a second and a vote, right?
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask a question?
No, sir, not right now. No, sir.
We got a motion from Ellis and a second
I'll
from
make my
Carolyn.
motion to include those items that Tom spoke about there.
All right.
Included of it.
All right. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
So be it. Thank you, Tom. Okay, approve resolution supporting local legislation.
As you all know, there's a pending lawsuit right now in the Superior Court of Paulding County challenging the authority of the Industrial Building Authority to do certain things, one of which is make a loan to the Paulding County Airport Authority for its taxiway widening project. There's been discussions with the local delegation about possibly introducing local legislation pursuant to the constitutional amendment creating the Industrial Building Authority in 1962 there was a provision in that constitutional amendment that allowed the General Assembly to further prescribe and define the duties of the Industrial Building Authority. I've had conversations with several members of the local delegation and asked them to consider supporting or introducing legislation that would further prescribe and define the duties of the Industrial Building Authority. This is simply a resolution from the Airport Authority, who's also a party to that lawsuit because they were the recipient of the loan from the Industrial Building Authority, asking the local delegation to consider or approving a resolution that supports local legislation that would further prescribe and define the duties of the Industrial Building Authority. Specifically, those duties, there's a provision in the constitutional amendment that says that the IBA has the power to build manufacturing facilities, assembly plants, and other things like that. And the IBA's position is that that language is not restrictive, that that's simply illustrative. That's just examples of things that they can do. It's not an exclusive list. And that's basically what the legislation we would be asking the delegation to further prescribe and define those duties and clarify that point that's contained in the constitutional amendment. From the Airport Authority standpoint, you would just simply be, again, adopting a resolution saying that you're in support of legislation that really doesn't directly affect the Airport Authority, but indirectly does, and especially in this case where there's a loan to the Airport Authority.
So we need to adopt a resolution.
You have a resolution, and you have one. You have the backup. I think Mr. Swafford sent it to you yesterday.
We did.
And all the resolution says is it just supports the adoption of local legislation to further prescribe and define the duties of the Industrial Building Authority.
So basically, it's an update.
It's a clarification, really. I mean, it's just really to try to clarify. In my legal opinion, it's not asking them to add any additional authority that they don't already have. But obviously, there are people that disagree with that position, and there's a lawsuit pending right now that will ultimately make that determination.
Anybody got anything to say, Tom, about it? Anybody?
Well, the resolution also clarifies past practices, and it is something that is prevalent across the state of Georgia in economic development. This enabling amendment was written or was passed in 1962, and so much of the world has changed. There were a lot of terms we use today were not even spoken or known at the time. So it is an update. The Constitution does provide it to be changed by statute rather than amendment, and that's what the local legislation would do, and it would probably more narrowly define the parameters where they have been broadly interpreted in the past. And with that, I would move the adoption of the resolution.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, need a motion to go into closed session.
Move. For the purpose of litigation. Now,
Purpose of
second.
litigation. All in favor?
Aye.
Back to you, Ms. Johnson.